Okay, welcome to my UK Global Talent Visa inspirational webinar on digital technology. Today I have a special guest and I will be interviewing my recent client who received his endorsement for exceptional talent. And so just a quick contents, I will be discussing firstly, what is the Global Talent Visa, the stage 1 application and process. And this is a surprise. I'm going to be interviewing, obviously, my client, Varundev, but we have got a special guest, which is his wife, Snigdha, who will be joining us today and answer some of my questions that I'd love to, her to answer, to also give you some insights on a partner's experience. And I'm really excited about that, that Snigdha has agreed to join us as well. And then finally, you have a chance to ask your questions to either Varun or Snigdha on the process and how they felt and some of their top tips as well. So just a little bit about myself. My name is Michelle Hewer. I am Vietnamese, I'm Australian, and I've also become a British citizen as a result of being a recipient of the Global Talent Visa. I am a Global Talent Visa coach, though, as a result of receiving my endorsement in 2016. And I went on to become the Tech Nation Visa Ambassador because back then there weren't many people who applied and who got it, or any people who knew about it. It was a very new visa back then, and I was one of the top 50 that received it. The great thing about the visa is that it gives you a route to settlement. So in 3 years, I was able to apply for an indefinite leave to remain, and then I got my British citizenship. I had spent 7 years in the UK and I based myself in Manchester and Newcastle for my startup. And I traveled very regularly to London for my startup. So what I found that had a commonality between all those tech ecosystems is that everyone was very friendly, everyone was very helpful in helping me build my startup. But it's such a collegial environment. But the reason is because you get back what you put in. So I put in a lot of time and effort. I invested a lot of my time and effort into building my networks within these 3 tech ecosystems, and that's why I received so much help and support. Before I became a tech entrepreneur, I was a solicitor in Australia, and I worked in different states in Australia before becoming a tech entrepreneur in England. And how it all started, after I got my visa, I wrote a blog about my experience. And as you can imagine, back then, there weren't many things about it. Obviously, there is a lot now, but back then there wasn't. So I wrote a blog that went viral, and I got so many people asking me to help them. I became the ambassador and then started my own business about doing this. So I'm really excited. I've been doing it for so many years, but really enjoy what I do because I help so many people with their journey, and I've been through it myself. So I know exactly what you're feeling throughout the whole process. Over the years, I've coached over 1,000 tech entrepreneurs, senior execs, and tech employees. My success rate is 90%, while the endorsement rate is 54%. And it's so great to hear when my clients receive their result within 27 hours. That's the best. However, the average is around 3 to 4 weeks. So anything before then is a bonus. And I love hearing these stories where my clients receive results very quickly. Over the years, my clients have been very varied, including people from WhatsApp, Sony, LinkedIn, Meta, Google, Zoom, those big tech companies. But then I also help, startup founders, UX designers, game designers, graduates, digital marketers, cybersecurity. You can see the list, it goes on and on. Even though I help people who have very similar titles, everyone's story is different. And this is why I love what I do. Everyone has a story to tell. And I love crafting that story with them to highlight all their achievements and strengths. And just a quick disclaimer, I only help with the Global Talent Visa endorsement process, so stage 1. There's a stage 2 visa process, which I don't help with, and that is an immigration application. So over the years and throughout my journey and in my application, my own application, I presented some evidence under the leadership criteria. We'll go through that in a sec, but just a quick snapshot of the things that I did. I was interviewed, I was quoted, I was in the Sunday Times, I've been in TechCrunch, and I was also a judge at an online IoT hackathon as well. People found me from the stuff that I was doing for my startup, and I got really involved in not only my, in the tech communities in Manchester, London, and Newcastle, but also globally as well. And this is the blog that it all started with. If you want to have a look, it's on my website, and you can see the journey that I went through in 2016. And it was actually right before the announcement of Brexit, which was very uncertain times then as well. So here are some of my successful clients who I interview on YouTube. Not everyone wants to be interviewed, so I'm really grateful for those who do want to share their story, and they are all inspiring stories. So please do go and have a look. If you like this webinar, there's more people who want to share their story. Back, I think last year, Tech Nation did make an announcement about them closing down, but luckily Founders Forum did acquire them, and it's still available. Tech Nation Visa, or the Global Talent Visa in Digital Technologies, is still available for you to apply for. There is a tendering process at the moment for a new endorsing body that won't be announced later this year, but don't worry too much. There was a bit of a just a bit of chaos back then when they said that they were closing down, but they didn't. And again, I don't think it will. This visa is too important for the UK economy, so just proceed as normal. So what is the Global Talent Visa? It's it used to be called the Exceptional Talent Visa, which I applied for, but it's now called the Global Talent Visa. It's a special visa that was introduced to allow highly skilled tech entrepreneurs and talent in the digital tech sector the right to apply to live and work in the UK for up to 5 years. It's a two-stage process. You have to be endorsed with Talent or Promise by Tech Nation before you can apply for the visa. There's a very strict criteria that you have to meet before you can be endorsed. If you look at the criteria, it may look like a job application, but it isn't. It's more than that. It's more than what you do in your day-to-day job. And there is a hashtag. I'm not sure if they're still using it, but when I applied, it was the hashtag Tech Nation Visa. The reason, because the Global Talent Visa is an umbrella visa for many different specialties. Digital tech is one of them, and Tech Nation is the endorsing body. There are other specialties like architecture, fashion, engineering, who have their own endorsing bodies, science. So that's why there is a hashtag, or they need to specify that this one is the Tech Nation Visa, because Tech Nation is the endorsing body for this one. The benefits, this is why I applied for mine. There's freedom and flexibility to live and work in the UK for up to 5 years. It's your own special visa. You can apply for an indefinite leave to remain and then citizenship once you go through and do your time, so to speak. So you can stay in the UK for 3 years or 5 years before you can apply for indefinite leave to remain, depending on what category you get, Promise or Talent, which I'll go through. You can switch from a Tier 2 skilled worker visa to the Global Talent Visa. And the great thing is the time that you spent in the UK under your skilled worker visa counts towards your indefinite leave to remain application and Global Talent Visa. So that is a huge thing. I help so many people who have a skilled worker visa who want to switch. And it just means your route to settlement is quicker. You can also bring your dependents with you, or your spouse, which is an amazing thing as well. You can register a UK limited company. Now, this is quite important, especially for some students who I help, who are on graduate visas or student visas, who can't, under the restrictions of their own visa, register a UK limited company. So the Global Talent Visa, especially entrepreneurs, this allows them to do that. You can also work for a tech company without the need for company sponsorship. So even though there is company sponsorship under the Skill 2, having the Global Talent Visa means that you can work anywhere. You don't have to worry about relying on anyone. Luckily, when I got my Global Talent Visa, I was working on my startup, but then I needed a break from my startup, and then I applied for other jobs, covering maternity leave or contract work, and it didn't matter because I had my own visa, and then I went back to my startup. So I was able to be very flexible. Again, it's attached to you, and it's also quite cost effective. The stage 1 endorsement process is in the hundreds. It's not in the thousands. It's only when you get the endorsement and you apply for the visa. Yes, the cost is high, but it's only because of the immigration health surcharge fee that is high, and everyone has to pay that. So I will go through the fees later on, but it is cost effective. Just quickly, the stats. There are people, you know, obviously people from many different countries who apply for the Global Talent Visa, up to 90. So these are just some of the main ones there: India, US, Nigeria, Canada, and Russia. There's a 54% endorsement rate, so 1 in 2. It is quite tough, but don't let that put you off. They're just stats, and this is why, you know, the coaches and consultants are here to help you and bring up those stats. There's been over 4,000 successful recipients over the years, and that isn't a lot. As you can see, the endorsement rate isn't great. But when I applied, and only I think in the last couple of years, there was a cap to get the endorsement. So when I applied, there was only 200 allowed per year that the assessors can endorse. So that isn't a lot. And so not only did we have to meet the criteria, but we had to fall under that cap, and that was quite stressful. They've lifted that cap. There is no cap anymore. So anyone who does meet the criteria will be endorsed. There's a talent and promise category to go through, but it's a 68-32. You know, they're just the stats that people are getting and applying for. As we know, Women in Tech is a huge tech initiative at the moment because there aren't as many women working in tech. So obviously there's less women applying for this visa, 75-25. And then once you do get the visa, you can join the Tech Nation Visa Alumni, which I'm a part of. And you meet other people who have gone through this process. And that's another network that you can join, and you can meet people from different countries who've gone through this process, building their companies or working for tech companies. It's a great network to be in, but you can only be in it after you've been endorsed and you get the visa. So just some stats from, you know, I know these are 2020 stats. I haven't got the latest ones yet, but it's roughly quite similar. So this is the endorsement rate per country. Again, don't let that put you off, but as you can see, these stats is under 50%, whereas people from these countries have a higher endorsement rate. I help a lot of people from these countries, but I also help people from these. So it really depends. And it's about telling your story, and that's what I do to help people get endorsed. And by skills, people think that this visa is a tech visa. It's only for people with tech skills, but it's actually not. It's for people with technical skills, but also business skills as well. So business development, working in a tech company, you know, just behind people who work particularly in hard tech software engineering. So these are, again, just the stats that you can see, but it's promising that it's not just tech skills that they're looking for. Over the years, you can see that a lot of people are starting to apply, especially because there's lots of promotions about it. There was a massive hike in this between these years. The reason was because when Tech Nation said that they were going to be closing down, I was so busy with lots of clients coming in wanting to apply before the deadline, even though the Home Office and Tech Nation said just proceed as normal, but people did get really worried. So that's why it really shot up in this time. And also during COVID as well, you know, people were working from home and had time to think about their future. So there was a reason there too. And now these stats, these years start from April of every year. So this year it's only just started. So there's only been, you know, a few hundred at the moment for this year, but really it only started in April. So it still is quite a few applicants applying for the endorsement. So quickly, what's really important, and this has only been advertised in the last few years, in that there's a definition of product-led digital technology company, because that's what the assessors and Tech Nation want, is people working for and providing examples of working for product-led digital technology companies. I've been asking for this definition since I started because it wasn't there and people didn't know what that meant, but now they've said that product-led companies are defined as businesses that provide proprietary digital tech service, product, platform, or hardware as their primary revenue source. So essentially, if you work for a company that builds their own products or service or platform, and that's their primary revenue source, then that would fit under the product-led technology definition. Especially if you work for or are a founder of this company, yes. By selling it through license or subscription, yes. However, if you work as a consultant, agency, or outsourcer, then no, that's strictly no. They don't want anyone working in those areas to apply, or they are ineligible to apply. The documents that you need to produce 15 documents, okay? A CV, a personal statement, and 3 letters of recommendations by experts, looking like a job application there. However, there's a further 10 documents you need to produce, and that is requirement under the mandatory or optional criteria, and you select the optional criteria. You have to choose the mandatory criteria. Eligibility, as I said before, it's either technical or business skills, and you can have a look at this list. And it's not it is not an exhaustive list, so they know that the tech sector moves quite quickly, but these are the types of skills. So if you have a skill that's not listed, just pick the ones that's closest to. Okay, so long as you fulfill the criteria. And then here, these specialisms are not considered suitable, and it's the outsourcing and consultancy one that I actually get a lot of. And if you're still unsure, you can have a look at my website. And you can fill in an eligibility questionnaire, and I can help you determine whether or not you're eligible. Being eligible is one thing, meeting the criteria is a whole nother thing. So there's little hurdles and steps to cross before you can start applying. You can be an employee or founder. In fact, there's more employees than founders applying, because a lot of people ask, I'm not an entrepreneur, and you don't have to be. It's a 75-25%. So a lot of employees are applying. So there's 2 categories in which you can apply under. You've got the exceptional talent or exceptional promise. The talent means that if you've got more than 5 years experience and you're later on in your career and you can prove your leadership through skills and achievements and you've got a senior role, you should be applying for talent. But if you are early in your career with less than 5 years, you can prove your potential to be a leader through some of the skills and achievements that you've gained and made, and you're a bit of a student or a graduate or more junior in your career, you can apply for promise. Okay. The difference is for talent, if you've got more than 5 years, and if you do get endorsed and get your visa, within 3 years, you can apply for indefinite leave to remain. However, if you apply for promise and you get it, it's within 5 years that you can apply for your indefinite leave to remain. So the difference is in 2 years. So the criteria is mandatory. You have to show your leadership potential, and you need at least 3 pieces of evidence, 3 documents to make up the 10 in your criteria. In the optional criteria, you've got 2 out of 4 you can choose. And again, you need at least 3 examples per criteria. So a lot of my clients, look at the innovation, its proven track record of innovation or examples of innovation that you've done, 3 examples of those. You can show that you've done some volunteer work. That's the proof of recognition for work that's outside of your occupation that advances the tech sector. You need 3 examples of that. Or you can choose the impact criteria, which is you've got some commercial, technical, or entrepreneurial contributions to the field, working for a product-led digital technology company. So you need 3 examples of that. And then 4th, if you've got any academic contributions, if you work in research and you've published some papers, you can choose that criteria. Okay, so all in, you need to produce 10 documents to meet these 3 criteria. So usually it's 3, 3, and 3, which is 9. But then the 10th document, you pick a criteria that you've already selected and put in an extra document for that criteria. So 4, 3, and 3, which makes it 10. You've got your personal statement, CV, and 3 letters of recommendation, 15. Sounds like a PhD of your career, which a lot of people say it is, and it is a lot of work, but it's a really good process of reflection, and what you produce at the end, hopefully you'll be really proud of. All my clients are proud of what they produce in their 15 documents at the end of this process, and especially when they get it. The process is 2 stages. Okay, the first stage, and there's 2 steps within the first stage. You've got to pay and register online at the Home Office, and that's that. Very easy. Pay, and then you get your numbers so that you can then upload your documents onto the TechNation website. Now, once you pay at the Home Office, you don't actually have to upload all your documents straight away. You've actually got 30 working days in which to upload. It's really 15 days, and then they send you a reminder that you've got another 15 days. Otherwise, you'll lose your money and they'll cancel your application fee. So just be mindful of that. The second step within stage 1 is uploading your documents onto the TechNation portal. Okay, and that's where you upload all your 15 documents and send it away. The great thing is online. When I applied, I had to print everything out and send it to Sheffield and wait for them to come back to me. I had no way of knowing that they received it, even though obviously I track and make it registered post. They've got up to 8 weeks to respond and give you a decision. the average is 3 to 4 weeks. So I think 80% of applicants or applications should be responded to within 25 days or 25 working days. So that's about 3 to 4 weeks. They then tell you whether or not you're successful or unsuccessful. If you are successful, fantastic. You go to stage 2, and then that's a Home Office visa application stage. You just need to produce your endorsement letter, and then hopefully, obviously, they will do a criminal record check, which is why this is a legal process, and hopefully you pass that, and then you get your visa. Okay, you have to pay £192, your biometrics, and your immigration health surcharge. That's the national NHS fee. That's the expensive bit. That's $1,000 roughly per year. So if you have a 3-year visa or a 5-year visa, you have to multiply that by the number of years that you want to stay in the UK under this visa. So it can be quite expensive at that point, and just be mindful of that. And that's per person. So you need to, if you've got spouses or dependents, you need to factor in extra costs in that. And then you get your visa within 3 to 8 weeks. I got mine very quickly, I think within a week, because I was already in the UK on an entrepreneur's visa, and I switched to the global talent. So I was already in the UK. I got it within a week, and I got my result within, I think, 4 weeks as well. If you are unsuccessful in your endorsement application, the assessor will give you feedback, and you will then decide whether or not you will appeal their decision by saying that they made a mistake, or you can take on their feedback and then use that feedback to reapply. Okay. There is no fee for an appeal. You have 28 calendar days in which to respond, and then they have 28 calendar days in which to come back to you with a decision. And it goes through a new assessor, and the new assessor looks at your previous application, your appeal, and the previous assessor's decision, and then they make their own decision based on all that. And they can either say, we agree with the first assessor, so unfortunately you're unsuccessful, or they turn it around and say, actually, you are right, there was a mistake, you are endorsed. And I have received that great news after appealing sometimes, not all the time, but when it does happen, my clients go straight to stage 2, which is good news. There is a strategy though. You can always appeal to get better and further feedback from the second assessor. If you feel like you know that, yes, there is a mistake, I'm going to try anyway, but my strategy is I might just get some better feedback. I've got nothing to lose. The second assessor could say, yes, you are successful, or, you know, the best thing you can get is more feedback, and then you can reapply. You can reapply anytime. So I do help a lot of people with their applications in this whole process, whether or not, you know, you're eligible. I've got lots of questions on how do I present my documents, what is relevant information, who can be my experts, how do I show my innovation or impact, or how do I show my leadership, how much experience do I need, and I've received an unsuccessful result, what should I do, should I appeal? So I help with all these and more. I've been through the process. I wear my recipient hat. I also wear my coaching hat to help you, to mentor, guide, support you throughout this process. And it is a lot. It's an intense process, and I feel that people who have been through it really do understand what you're going through. Either it's me, or someone else who's been endorsed, or, you know, your partner or someone who's going through this with you at the time. It is stressful and intense, but support is key. So if you want me to help you with your eligibility, I have an eligibility questionnaire on my website, but I've got loads of resources as well on my website. So please do feel free to have a look at that and watch some stories and videos and things like that as well. Now, over the years, I've got some tips. I've got loads of tips, more than 5, but these are my top 5 tips as a recipient and a coach. This is your chance to tell your unique story. As I said, it is about storytelling, and I can't emphasize this enough, because I have seen so many applications, either, you know, people have done it themselves, or they've done it with other consultants helping them, or, you know, I read a lot of applications, and I'm looking for a story. I'm looking to see how your evidence fits in with the story you're trying to tell. And, you know, an assessor's reading this, someone's reading this, so they need to understand where it's all going, and whether or not you're eligible, and whether or not you meet the criteria. Your tech network in this process is very important, because you're relying on people to write letters for you and to explain why you deserve this visa, why you're an exceptionally talented person working in tech. This process is also about self-promotion, and I know a lot of people are very uncomfortable about promoting themselves, but it's about really telling someone your achievements. You're not bragging, you're just highlighting your strengths and achievements. Being eligible is one thing. Meeting the criteria requires a strategy and putting together all the documents in place. As I said, it's about telling your story, and it's a strategy that we need to come up with. And also, please contact me sooner rather than later if you need support. A lot of people contact me after they've submitted, which, you know, is fine because they're going through it themselves. And then when I read it, there's so many gaps that I can see that could have been caught before submission. But look, contact me anytime. Sooner is better, so I can help you. I can check your application, or just have a strategy session with you to help you plan and prepare your application so you know where you're going, even though you can do it yourself. And I encourage people, if you want to do it yourself, I did it myself, but it took 3 months and no sleep. And I wish I did have support during the process to make it easier for me and to increase my chances of getting it. Even though I did get it, it was very stressful during the process. So I mentioned my YouTube channel. Have a look at that. There's loads more videos on there, my website, and you can also email me as well after this if you need. But I always have to send you to my eligibility questionnaire, because that's where I can kind of obviously try and help you by looking at your background and some questions that you would answer for me. This is what you're here for, and I'm sorry it's taken this long, but I wanted to give you a quick snapshot about the Global Talent Visa process. And I'd love to welcome my special guest, Varun, who is from India, who has now received his Global Talent Visa in digital technology under the Exceptional Talent route. And welcome, Varun. It's so lovely to meet you again and see you. And thank you so much for coming to my webinar.
Hey, hi, Michelle. It's lovely to meet you as always. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. And it is a Sunday, and thank you so much. We're trying to figure out schedules for everyone, but I'm so pleased this webinar is recorded so everyone can hear your story, because you've got a very big story to tell. Firstly, I would love for you to tell people who you are and your background, and yeah, we'll get started. So yes, please.
Sure thing, Michelle. So, as you mentioned, right, I started my career in India. I worked for a robotics startup in India, and did that for around 4 or 5 years. And after that, I've been working across Germany and the UK over the past 5, 6 years. So overall, I've been working in this industry for 10 plus years. Currently, I am working as a senior solutions manager. What that means is I'm part of a team which is involved in B2B enterprise sales. And essentially, as part of that team, I would be seen as an expert on robotics and warehousing. And yeah, that's what I do.
Wow. So I just noticed that you're saying that you're an expert now, which is amazing, because
Yeah,
you got away from that word when we were going through this process. I said, Lauren, you're an
that's
expert.
true.
You've been in this industry for 10 plus years. And just that word already it's true, right? And I love hearing you say that, because you are. So Varun, tell me, why did you decide to apply for the Global Talent Visa?
Well, so essentially, I've been living outside of India since 5, 6 years, and I mean, mostly have been on some variation of a skilled worker visa, right? And when I got to know about this type of visa, I mean, the kind of freedom that it offers, that was really valuable for me. And essentially, the fact that it's able to fast track ILR, right? And that's again something super valuable for me, and that's why I essentially decided to
Yeah.
apply here.
And you were in the UK when you decided to apply, so you were on that skilled worker visa.
That's correct.
And I mean, I know you loved working for your company, you wanted to continue working for your company, but I guess being on a skilled worker visa and getting the global talent, if you got the exceptional talent, you would have in 3 years got the ILR. So it was really just a
Exactly.
fast track route to settlement that you wanted. and you could
Absolutely.
continue to work for your company, which you wanted to.
Absolutely.
So, what challenges and hesitations did you come up with, and how did you overcome them?
Well, so actually, so for first, so for everyone's context, I've applied twice, and the first time I applied independently. Just me and my partner, we hacked at it. But I mean, when I heard friends and some people I knew going through this process, I went ahead and looked at the criteria. And at first glance, that 4 or 5 page criteria looked extremely hard, right? I mean, the first instinct is okay. I mean, it's probably for somebody who is like really out of the world achiever. But then slowly thinking about it, talking to people, looking at some of these webinars which Michelle had posted, I got the sense that okay, if you think about it and maybe try to look at whatever you have done and try to structure it, map it to the criteria, maybe you can get somewhere. And essentially, that's how I got over the initial challenges. But when I mean, we applied the first time, we did it on our own. It was just me and my partner doing it. Well, I mean, she comes from some amazing experience. She has been to one of the best B schools in Europe, and essentially we thought probably this is a little bit like a B school application. So we built it. It was again a 3 month effort, but we it didn't come through. And then we decided to seek some professional help. And we contacted Michelle for the appeal, and yeah, it's been an amazing journey since then.
Oh, I'm pleased. Now, this appeal had a strategy. Like I just quickly
Right,
talked about the strategy, and we talked about, okay, do we appeal or do we just start a fresh application? I mean, there were some mistakes that we saw that the
right,
assessor had made, and there was not really nothing to lose because you'd spent so much time on this, and let's see what we could do in appealing, but with the
exactly.
strategy of resubmitting.
Right,
Yeah. Yeah. And that feedback was really helpful. The second feedback, they had, different things, and you could see where you went wrong. Or
absolutely.
just you just didn't highlight things that, like, robotics expert. I keep going back
Absolutely,
to that because
absolutely,
that really did put your mind, I
absolutely,
think, I wanted you to be in the frame of mind of, I am an expert. I deserve to be in the UK, and these are my skills and achievements, really. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, definitely. I mean, the way story is portrayed, and even in the first application, I mean, we we put in too much without focusing on building a right story around it. So yeah, but I think discussing with you, going through the appeal process and how we dissected their appeal and responded to that, that itself was a great learning experience.
Yeah. Yeah, you learned so much already in that process. So yeah, we moved on to resubmitting. So then we decided to reapply with, okay, two sets of feedback, all the information that you had prepared for. So it was a good starting point. We did use some of your evidence, and took out the stuff that didn't really apply or the assessors didn't like, which is fine. Who were your experts that we ended up choosing? Because then we had to re-look at your application from scratch and then go, okay, who are
Right,
we going to choose as your 3 letters of recommendations by experts?
right, right. So eventually, in my final application, as the three experts, I think I had one who was a co-founder of the company that I was working in, and that person had also played the role of a CEO for a very long time. So that was, I feel, one of my strongest experts. Other than that, I had worked with an entrepreneur based in Latin America, in the past, and I requested them to write the second letter for me. And the third letter was quite challenging, but I somehow was able to stitch into my story a friend and a mentor who had also recently got the Global Talent Visa. And I think that turned out to be quite nice
Yeah.
ultimately.
Yeah, it was really good. And having mentors again, like, looking at your whole network, there's a lot of people that you work with during your career, which is fine, but people forget about mentors who you touch base with, every now and then to help you in your career and who know about your work, and they are experts themselves. So mentors are a big one. I used my mentor, even though she didn't really work with me, but she did help me in my progress, helped me in my career in the UK, and yeah, and they were a Global Talent Visa recipient themselves, so they would be considered as an expert. So that's really good. And we did use other people to help you fulfill the other criteria. So what criteria did you select, and what did you what documents did you put against those criteria?
Yes, yes, yes. So, in addition to the mandatory criteria, we ultimately ended up choosing innovation and impact. And for the mandatory criteria is when we had invited additional letters to buttress that, one from founder and CEO of my company, and the other one from a customer leader whom I had worked with. And these two were evidences for the mandatory criteria essentially for me. And the third one was high salary. Again, just prove against your industry, against your title, that it's a high salary. Find evidences to prove that. And then for innovation, I had a couple of patents to my name. And we submitted that along with some software product related evidence, which I had contributed towards. And interestingly, for impact, there were a few industry awards which the company had won, not specifically myself, but yeah, those were essentially quite valuable as well for the impact criteria. And we could, I mean, while ultimately selecting all of these, we could literally see some of the mistakes that we had made in the first application around putting speaking engagements in mandatory, and putting some awards which were not necessarily mine. And I think we were able to fix a lot of that during the second application.
Yeah. And that's a real shame because you did do a lot of like speaking engagements, but on behalf of your company and for your company to sell your company's products. And
Exactly.
it
Exactly.
sounds like it's okay to submit, but in actual
Yeah.
fact, the assessors, what they're looking for is speaking engagements, not for your company, but for your thought leadership, for what you know about the industry, as opposed to selling the company's products, because that's what you're paid to do. And this is why it's more than a job application. So that was a huge, I think that was the biggest eye opener for you, because it's not, you're not to know that you're not supposed to put that in until
Exactly.
someone explains it to you and say, well, that's the difference. And I think the penny dropped when you saw that, because you're like, why? I'm
Exactly.
speaking, I'm doing speaking engagements. And that's a big one because a lot of people do make that mistake as well. So that's a really solid application. You did have patents, well, you do have patents, and you did produce that in your first application.
Right.
Even though you did satisfy that criteria, you still need to satisfy all the other criteria in order to be endorsed. So just because you have patents doesn't mean that you're going to be endorsed, which yeah is a shame, but we were able to restart and restructure your application to add to your innovations and your patents. Okay, so you've got it now. Let's look at the timeline, because your journey has been quite a long journey.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, it all started actually in similar time last year, actually in May, when I got to know about this through some friends and colleagues. And ultimately, we ended up submitting the application in July, 17th of July last year. and we got the unsuccessful decision on the 8th of August.
Okay.
And a few days after that, I reached out to you. And a little under 2 weeks, we submitted the appeal then on 23rd of August. And in about a week or so, we got the further feedback and unsuccessful appeal decision towards the end of August, on 29th August around. And then basically we decided to work straight away into a full blown. Let's just redo the application. Let's put the best effort forward now with professional help. And ultimately, I ended up submitting my last application on the 19th of Feb. And the best part was we got the result in 3 days. So that was really unbelievable, actually.
Yay!
Absolutely.
That's amazing. Jeez, like
Yeah, yeah.
we spent from, I mean, say September, because you came, we at end of August, we worked from September to February. I know that
Right,
sounds like a long time. It didn't really feel like that long. We were
right.
constantly at it, but also we had a break during Christmas as well. And obviously we're a bit
Absolutely.
busy during the you know, traveling time and stuff. But it meant so much to you as well. And we really had this last opportunity, obviously, for you to get this right. Okay. And I know you probably thought we were going to submit before Christmas and just do everything, but yeah, it's a process, and you just have to just trust the process and the journey. But in three
Absolutely.
days, that is 3 days after a whole year.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. No,
Okay, so
no. I
then
mean,
go on.
yeah, it was definitely quite rewarding as well, right? I mean, the entire journey, there was like a lot of self-exploration as well. So it was quite fun. I just wanted to add that from a timeline perspective, when I was looking after getting the endorsement, I think the data which was not very easily available was the fact that once you get the visa appointment, how long does it take to get the biometric residence permit, right? So this data point is I've applied from the UK, so it's more applicable for that. But after applying, I got the biometric residence permit delivered to my residence in a post within a week again. And I think the amazing thing was that we did not even have to submit our passports for that. They just saw our passports during the appointment, and yeah, we thought we were going to potentially get some travel restrictions, but we didn't
No.
get that. So even that is amazing, I think, for this visa.
Yeah, it's great. It's so easy. Once you get the endorsement, everything's a lot easier.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So how long did it take? It was only a week, right? From applying
Yes,
for roughly, yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. It took I think the next available appointments were 2 to 3 weeks out
Yeah.
when we started looking, but once we were at the appointment, it just took a week for us to get the new visa.
That's
Yeah.
so exciting. That's so exciting. And I ask everyone this because it happened to me, but what happened when you traveled and then you come back on your new visa? Have you had that?
No, no.
And then
So I haven't left the
they ask
country.
you? Oh, you haven't. You left when you had your other visa.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. I haven't traveled since then. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize. Well, when I left the country and then I've got my new visa, and you come back in and they ask you, "What's your talent?" Because it says exceptional talent, and and you have to have a good. Well, obviously they're very serious, so you can't joke around with them about what talent you have. But then you kind of feel a little bit like you have to be quite humble and say, "Well, I'm an expert in this, and the government has endorsed me with exceptional talent." But it is a confronting question when you come through customs, because you're so happy that you've got this visa. You can't joke with them. Yeah,
Thanks. That's a
and
good
yeah,
tip, Michelle.
well, let me know when that happens to you, because it's funny when it does. And I've spoken to a lot of applicants who have. So okay, so let's look at reflection. What was the difference between your first and second? I know you touched on it, but what was the difference in your first and second application now that you can really look back?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, right? I mean, so when we submitted the first time, right? I mean, so I work at somewhat as a conflu at the confluence of business and technical. right? So I it was a bit of a conundrum the first time we submitted. Should we focus more on business, technical? But then we ultimately decided to focus on business and trying to prove impact on that. And essentially, it did. Um yeah, it did turn out a bit hard for us to prove because let's say in B2B enterprise sales, there's usually not one person who's responsible for like the entire multiple $10 sale, right? So there was something that in hindsight that became a bit clear. So I think we pivoted from that and focused a bit more on the technical side, projected switch the whole story from becoming from being mainly a business leader to a technical and business leader, and then choosing the rest of the criteria and the evidences um, just purely based off of that. And then I think second time around, I feel what we also did was we spent a lot of time explaining the context to the assessor, right? And I think of the 4 or 5 months that we actually spent, a lot of time was spent actually on refining how do you give context, give proper introductions to the assessors so that they can understand what is it that they're looking at. And then essentially our letters were also much more detailed. And I mean, just the attention to detail that we realized what was required, we only understood after working with Michelle, right? I mean, it's not like a regular application, like Michelle says, it's not a job application. It's not, right? Because in job application, people would probably look at your resume for 5-10 minutes at max, and then probably invite you for an interview or not, right? But here there is no interview process. It's uh, everything. I mean, your entire not just your career, your personality, everything has to reflect from the level of perfection that you input into the evidences that you ultimately submit, right? And like there's a requirement for a lot more structure and um, detail in letters and everywhere so that they can understand, and like it needs to be pretty much immaculate. Um, I mean, it was, yeah, it took a lot of revisions and refinement to get to the second one, and that's when we realized what it actually takes and what it means to submit a successful application.
I think yes, you're right. And it was so good to work with you because you were so much more invested this time around, and you really did take on board a lot of my comments, and you really got into the process, which I love because it's your application, but I'm just helping you refine things and making sure the story is tight and all your evidence is really reflecting on all your achievements. I think even reframing it to say, I'm the expert, these are my achievements, these are my metrics. Whereas the other application, it was almost like you're on a back foot a little bit and trying to prove everything. But the second one was, this is me. These are my
Exactly.
achievements. These are my strengths. This is why you need me in the UK. And it really did shine. I really did enjoy it. And you can now move forward from this and use what we've done for anything else that you might do. You've got a base now to yeah, move forward and progress, which I loved to
Absolutely.
see.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, one more question. What advice would you have now that you've gone through the process for others?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, uh, this is like going to be a good amount of time investment, right, from your side, right? So, like, I think it's about deciding how important it is for you, right? I mean, for me, when I applied in May, I was a bit of in an exploratory phase, right? But then I thought, okay, this is something which I can get, right, and with a little bit more help, and that's when essentially we decided to invest, right? And it's about you're gonna put in a lot of time into this, right? The kind of result that you might get is quite dependent on the amount of help that you get, right? So do focus on getting as much help as possible, be it from friends or from Michelle, right? And I think ultimately, I mean, through this journey, what really helped is having somebody as an accountability partner, right? We used to have calls almost every week, right, and take action items after the call. And I think that's how we made most of the progress. And yeah, I mean, don't lastly, don't discount your past achievements. I mean, I feel you need like one or two solid ones, and then it's about building the right story around and presenting it. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents.
Storytelling. That's all
Absolutely.
that's what
Yeah,
really comes out is story. Every document told a story.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
What does this visa mean to you now? Obviously, it's pretty clear, but
Well, I mean, it's. I think again the freedom that it offers, right? And yeah, I think that has been the most important thing, right? I mean, when we started the application and when we got it, right? But I feel, I mean, through this experience, um, I mean, the kind of coaching that we got from you, right? I think Signa will also probably talk to this, but I think the fact that we not just looked at the 15 evidences, but we also reviewed my LinkedIn profile, right? And you gave like a 20-point feedback on that as well, and then redo this, redo that, and make sure it is in case they check.
oh, I think
I
we've lost
think
him. Oh yeah. Good.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, you
I'm not
just
sure you
froze. You
missed
just
there.
froze.
Oh,
Yes, can
oh,
you repeat? We just sorry, it might be my internet connection, but yeah, if you can
no
sorry,
worries.
repeat that.
No worries, no worries. I think I would say the most important thing we got was I think the kind of coaching that you provide when you understand what we are doing and then you dissect it and then essentially push us to really articulate it. Right. I feel that also helped in understanding what personal brand building is, right? I mean, people who might be new on this journey right now, they might not grasp the full value of this right now, but it's definitely something which is I feel quite important now.
I'm really pleased. Thank you so much for your kind words. I really did enjoy working with you and Stigna, who I'll get on in a second. I saw your transformation during the process, and you may not have seen it, but maybe you felt it when, certain times during our weekly meetings, the penny does drop. But overall, I see that in front of my eyes, sort of halfway through, or even sometimes before. And this is why I love it, because I see that you can see yourself in a different way. And you're, sitting taller, you're an expert, you're calling yourself an expert. And I just love that, because not everyone thinks themselves of that, because we come from cultures where we shouldn't brag, and we shouldn't, promote ourselves. But I'm sorry, but this process is about it, because you want it. So
That's
you
true.
have to tell someone what your achievements are and strengths and skills. So I'm so pleased,
Mhm.
really pleased. And I love the fact that you always say we, which is you and your wife, Signa. I love it, because you really were a team. And this is why I invited Signa. And thank you, Signa, for coming. Please come and join us, because you've been waiting patiently. And I'd love to hear your story as well, because we were so focused on Varun, absolutely, and we had that goal. But it's nice to now hear from your perspective, because you were sitting there as Varun's partner and biggest support. But it not only requires professional support. Varun, you can stay on. Please stay on. I'd like you to stay on, and we want to see.
We actually had someone at the door, so
Oh,
he's
okay,
just
fine.
going
Okay,
to
okay, that's fine.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. He can come back on. But yeah, it's so important to have professional support, but also personal support. But someone in your corner, backing you 100%, and that was you, Snigdha. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. Obviously, it's Varun's story, but I've seen it very closely, and I'm happy to share, my experience of it as a
Brilliant.
partner.
Yes, so please tell us about yourself and me, because we didn't even get into learning about you as much. So this is, yeah, I'd love to learn about you now.
Yeah, no, of course. So I am also from India, and I have about 9 years of experience working in different industries and functions. I started my career doing analytics in a big bank. Then I moved on to be part of a founding team of a non-profit startup in India. And currently, I am doing sales ops and strategy for an AI/ML scale up in London. I'm an engineer, and I also have an MBA. And yeah, I think I've lived in 4 different countries now. So that's been interesting as
Wow.
well.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you kind of have a business and technical background as well, and you work
Yeah.
in tech.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think everyone might be wondering the same thing. Did you consider applying for the visa yourself? And what was the strategy around that? And why didn't you apply? Or did you? I don't know.
Well, it was tempting for sure. But when we moved to London, Varun was the primary sponsored on the skilled worker visa, and I was dependent. Had I applied, it would have led to a resetting of a counter, and that would have affected our journey to ILR, which definitely offers a lot more freedom, offers a lot more stability. So it was a conscious decision that we took as a team, that because Varun is the primary, we keep him the primary applicant for this as well.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, that is a good practical reason. I do feel that you could look at this now just to see. No, obviously you're not going to apply, but I feel like you do have eligibility and potentially the criteria, and this can be a process. If you want to just consider, obviously all the things that he had to go through, and I think you learned a lot in this process. So,
100%.
yeah, tell us about your experience in Varun's journey, because personal support is key. Oh, look, you've got some love heart emojis, which is nice.
Thank you. Right. So again, as a partner, I think the biggest difference is because Varun was the one applying and it was his profile that was front and center, the weight of the responsibility to complete this application with so many evidences and proving your own expertise, that doing that, especially with work pressure as well, I think there was a lot of weight on him, and I was not really feeling. So my approach was just to try to empathize with him as much as possible, understand when different priorities will take over and support him appropriately, whether, it was brainstorming or reviewing. I think what helped to remember was that this visa is for the both of us, not just Varun. It is for our life in the UK, and so it's a team effort. And by expediting the path to ILR, what it does is it gives me the freedom to not worry about getting my own sponsorship, which, if you think about it, is good both for me and my employer. So it did open up a lot more opportunities for me, empowering me to be more active in my own career journey, and obviously building a life here with Varun. Obviously, it was great to also have some outside support from you, Michelle, because especially when the two of us would get into a conversation and have very different points of view, it really helped to have an objective third party come in, give us guidance, clarify, and also maybe point out things that are significant details to an outsider of our life. Maybe something that we consider normal, but someone who's looking into our lives and into our career journeys and can point out why it is different or unique or interesting. I think you did a lot of that, and I think that made quite a bit of a difference in our application as well.
Thank you. It gives me goosebumps because I really did. I mean, Snigdha, you were heavily invested, and I can't say so like as much as I can, is that you were there. I'm sorry, everyone needs to know this, but you were there at every single meeting. Okay, only one, but that's because you were traveling, and that's okay. That's okay. But you were there at every single meeting, and you really invested, and you actually knew more about his career and everything that he did sometimes than he knew. You know, so you were very heavily as much as him, and you not only had the personal support, you did help him in the first application as well, because you have that business background. But now that you've gone through both, like, you know, doing it on your own, and I asked this to Varun, sorry, this just came to me, this question is, did you see the difference in the first and second one as well, application?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, it was good to have you come in and, you know, help us make a decision on certain things, whether we want to keep something in the application or not. And also, I guess, from our conversations, all of us together, we identified a few things that it's hard, that become your blind spots when it's just about you. But otherwise, you know, when someone points them out, it becomes very valuable. But I think the biggest thing that I learned about the whole process was this application is actually about building your personal brand. You know, in our day-to-day, we get really engrossed in our work and succeeding in a particular company or in a particular role. But this experience reminded me that there are other ways to succeed in both life and your career. It's not just the work that you're doing. There are so many other things to think about. And while the objective was for Varun to get that visa, I reflected a lot about how I want to move in my career and, you know, how I want to build my network, how I want to build my expertise, and demonstrate it to others. I guess that is the big piece. You know, all of us have some expertise in our lives, in our fields, but how to demonstrate it to others and make an impact. And I think that is the objective, I guess, of this process. And I think, like you said, you know, even though I'm not going to apply for this, I really think it's valuable to do this kind of introspection, self-reflection, and almost a rebranding if needed, for your own career as well.
I'm so pleased you say that. Thanks, Varun. Snigs is just, yeah,
Thank you
said
for
some really.
Thank you, Varun, for handling the person at the door.
Snigs has just highlighted some really interesting things, insights, and this process, she said, is, you know, it obviously it helped you, but it helped her because it was a personal branding exercise, even if it's not for the Global Talent Visa. The Global Talent Visa was the carrot, but the journey, I think, is not for the Global Talent Visa. It's for your own career progression and branding. And I'm so pleased that this helped both of you. And Varun, you could see it for your visa, but Snigdha, you could really see it for your own career, and where you're going next. And we are going to have a chat later on, which I'm so excited about, because this, for me, again, is not just about the visa. It's about the journey, the transformation journey. And I could see you were asking questions about your own career and things like that. So that's really helpful. And thank you for sharing your insights. Someone said something really nice. What did they say? I have to read it because it sounds really nice. Nothing beats a team working towards a specific goal together. I love your story. You're both awesome. And they really are. I do work with partners as well, and I love working with partners because this is what I see every week. I see them work together as a team. Sometimes there are disagreements, which is fine, but we work through them and we discuss them as a team. And I'm so pleased to be involved in that because I learn from how you guys work together as well. And it was a joy. It really was. And someone can already see that just from your answers, you know, but I had months of this, so that's why I wanted to share it with everyone. yeah, it was really good, and I'm so pleased. What's your exciting plans, Snigdha, now that you've got this visa? I want to hear it from your side.
Well, I work at a very exciting scale up right now in the AI ML space. You know, ev everything's popping in here right now. So I'm very excited to continue working there, seeing my career grow. It's it's at a very interesting point in the company's journey, in the industry's journey. So I'm really looking forward to witness that, be a part of that without having to worry about a visa.
Yeah, so both of you don't have to worry about a visa. You can travel now properly. Like, you know, it's, I guess, because this whole year was taken up with focusing on this visa. So now you can kind of just take a big, deep breath and just enjoy. Now, we talked about the timing. So, Varun, you've now got the global talent. You switched from skilled worker to global talent. When do you get to apply for your ILR? Because the time in the UK counts from the skilled worker.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that is one amazing thing about this visa, right? And when we were initially thinking, right, I mean, either me or Snigdha, either of us could have applied. But when we moved to the UK, I was the primary skilled worker visa holder. So essentially, we didn't want to reset the timer, and now essentially in July is when I finished 3 years in the UK, and I'll be able to apply for the ILR, I believe.
Oh my gosh, that is one more month. And you're on your way to route to settlement. That's amazing. Guys, can you hear this?
Absolutely.
This is fantastic. Seriously. That whole year, obviously, of working towards this visa was really worth it to get this ILR next month. And just so everyone knows that when you apply for your ILR, you do have to sit a life in the UK test. I don't want to stress you out. So they're on their way to sitting the test to get the ILR. Now, Varun, you get the ILR, but then because Snigdha, you're a partner, what does that mean for you in terms of timing?
So all that means is that I extend my dependent visa. So I still have to complete 5 years of residence and working in the UK to be eligible for an ILR. But because Varun is on an ILR, there's, you know, it just greases the wheels a little. And so I'm just looking forward to staying put for another 2.5 years before I can get my ILR.
Yeah, but the fact is that your time counts towards the ILR anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's just you're progressing as well. Everyone just gets his ILR first because he got the exceptional talent endorsement.
And I guess as long as one of us has the ILR, the possibilities that we have in the UK to sort of build our life, you know, take advantage of all that the UK has to offer, I think it works for the both of us. So.
Yeah. Absolutely, yes, and it is teamwork is key in this regard. So, yeah, it's wonderful to see that you both are just now really well onto your way to just start your lives and be a big part of the UK tech sector. Not
Thank
just
you for helping us with that.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure.
Absolutely.
It really is. Yeah. But they got two people, you know, they got Varun in the tech sector and they also got Snigdha in the tech sector as well. So they got double. Okay. Oh, thank you so much for sharing your story. It really does mean a lot to me that you did come on. And Varun, look, this is why I love interviewing my clients who want to be interviewed, is because you need to hear these stories. You only applied from hearing stories, seeing people like you getting the visa, not someone who's like, you know, I don't know, the Richard Bransons, you know, people that you think, oh my gosh, they're out of reach and I'm not like them. But you're normal people getting the visa, and that's how I felt as well. We're just normal people doing our job, but also doing something extra, obviously getting good achievements so that we can say, you know, you need us in the UK and we can make significant value for being here.
Exactly. Absolutely agree, Michelle.
So pleased. Okay, so I just want to quickly answer some questions because there have been some here, and this one, Varun, is very similar to yours. If one of your recommenders who is a CEO who received the Global Talent Visa, should they mention being a Global Talent recipient in their recommendation letter? So I'll let Varun answer this one.
Yes, definitely. Most definitely. I think they should call it out. I think that only would strengthen the letter. And yeah, it just gives more confidence to the assessors that this is somebody whom they've already assessed as an expert in the past. And ultimately, they want letters from experts. So this is yeah, definitely a great thing to have.
Yeah. Also, just as a disclaimer as well, is you actually have to know these people. Okay, you can't just ask recipients to be your experts. You have to have a relationship with them.
Yeah.
Can a recommender speak to your work even though they didn't do the work with you? So, example was your mentor. Yes, you can have someone, but they should know what you did. They can talk around your work and confirm the work that you did. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, actually, one of the requirements is that you do have to, I think, highlight the work that was done in the last 1 to 2 years together. And the person should have known at least over a period of more than 12 months. So those requirements definitely need to be met. And I think the longer the association that you have with them, and the more you can pull out examples from further past, the better it would be.
Yeah. And it is okay that you know people, have known people for your experts for over 10 years. You obviously have to explain how you met them, how they know of your work. And also, as Varun said, in the last sort of 1 to 2 years, even in the last 5 years, you still need to have a kind of a relationship with them, which is why it's really important that your network, your networking skills are still up to scratch as well, is you have to consistently be in touch with these people. I had a client who knew someone 10 years ago, but didn't have a relationship within those 10 years. So I was like, you're a very different person 10 years ago than you are today. So there has to be that gap that's filled. And if you can't fill that gap, you shouldn't really use that person, because they probably knew you as a junior, not as a senior. Okay. How do you work around all the content of the recommendation letter? Does all 3 expert recommendation letter have to say the same thing, or they speak to different things? And Varun, would you want to have a go at this?
Yeah. So I mean, so there'll be like so this is about the strategy, right? I mean, how do you use which expert really, right? So it depends a little bit on the profiles of the expert as well. So if they're probably a bit more business oriented, you'd want to call a bit more of those aspects in their letters. Um, Technical oriented, likewise, and more entrepreneurial, those qualities. But I mean, so first of all, you don't have to like include all your achievements in all the letters. Can be selective, can be some overlap, but basically it needs to like ultimately make a good story overall.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, because they shouldn't really be saying the same thing about you, because they're writing the letter from their own perspective. So they would talk about different things about you, especially the timings of when you met them and how you work with them. So they would be different. And they do have a guidance as well in the technician guidelines. There are points for them to talk about. So you can give that to them, and they can obviously talk to those things and confirm what you did. This has been recorded, someone is asking, so you will see it on my YouTube after the webinar. We'll send an email. Okay, so early stage founders, I do help them in their applications. And yes, if you are pre-revenue, what kinds of evidence would you provide? This is where founders, there are certain things that founders can do to help build their evidence, and that is obviously working. This is what I had an issue with as well, because as a founder, you're doing everything and you're starting your business and doing everything you possibly can. I was quite strategic even before this process, where I knew I was a founder building my startup. The things that I was doing in my startup were confidential. I couldn't really share that. But what I could do was talk about, the insights in the industry. I was an expert in the wearable tech industry at the time. I'm not an expert anymore because it's been some time that I haven't done it, but I was a wearable tech expert at the time. So I talked more about the wearable tech industry. What did I know to help me build my product? And obviously I couldn't disclose the things that I was doing in building my product. So you just have to be a bit strategic that you are the ambassador for your company, and you can talk about your company or the industry in different ways, and you can showcase that evidence on what you've done for either your company or for the industry. So obviously when you choose the criteria, you talk about your leadership in the industry and leading your own company. If you want to ask, you're asking about the innovation criteria, what documents you can provide. Obviously the things that you submit in the technician endorsement application is confidential, but you also have to be careful about, you know, not disclosing everything. So you can show your innovations in building the product that you're building for your own startup. Okay, but for impact, again, Varun was saying, like, what have you done that impacts the industry and also your own startup as well, company? So we can talk about this. I've got some ideas because I've been in those shoes, and I can help guide you what kinds of things you can show under innovation and impact. And I hope that kind of helps. Okay, so someone's asked about their expert who can't provide a letter. Can someone else speak to their work in their letter, or do they need to mention that they're my mentor in the letter? You have to establish a relationship. Unfortunately, if your professor can't talk about it, find someone who can talk about it. Preferably, yes, you need that person who worked with you. But if you have a mentor, that's good as well. But see how you go. This process isn't quick. You know, again, Varun, it's been a year, so you could still have that professor who can't do it right now. They can do it later on, but just keep your relationship going, or even just say, I'll contact you in 3 months or in 6 months. They might be in a better place to help you. Yeah, this process does take a long time. Is 3 pages mandatory for each evidence? What do you think, Varun?
So, I mean, this is also, I think, a learning which we took, right? I mean, initially, first application, our letters were probably 2 pages. And I mean, the level of detail that we were able to capture in them was probably not as much as we got in the second time around. So, as much as possible, do try to like make it a 3-page evidence. It doesn't necessarily have to be 3 pages. But it's a nice thing to have. Typically, for explaining any piece of content, you would need 3 pages to set the context, talk about it, and then talk about its impact. So you might as well structure it across multiple pages.
Yeah, when I applied, we only had a 2-page limit. And that wasn't enough, obviously. And even 3 pages we saw wasn't enough. What do we put in? What do we take out? Assessors also don't click on links. So if your link is important, you have to take a screenshot of it and source the link. So that adds, you know, space. So yeah, 3 pages. I have clients that have 5 pages and we have to squeeze it into 3. And you packed on so much evidence that yes, you did stack on the evidence, but then does it tell the story? So we really, yes, I think 3 pages is, if they give it to you, use it, is what I'm saying. Yeah. Someone's asking about, sorry, the innovators visa. Does the time spent in the UK on the innovators visa count towards getting the ILR? I think yes, because that is the route. I'm not familiar with the process of the innovators visa. But I do believe that if you are on an innovators visa, I think, and please don't, you have to get immigration advice on this. I think it does. I think within 3 years, you can go for ILR in 3 years if you're under the innovators visa. I think so. Just double check that it does count, because the innovators visa before, I don't think it had that route to settlement, but I think now it does. I was on an entrepreneur's visa before I switched to global talent, and my time in the UK on the entrepreneur's visa counted towards the global talent in order for me to get the ILR. So the innovators visa is very similar. So just double check that. And I know, sorry, I couldn't get to that question earlier. I think that's it really. Just looking at other questions. Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry, one more question. Does the expert have to be a CEO? this person, yeah, you already know this answer. This person has, a professor, senior directors, and they don't. Yeah, so if you don't have a social media presence, that's fine. You can still ask them. The first thing is you just need to prove their expert status, their credibility, and then go on to explain your relationship with them and what you did with them. Being an expert is key. It doesn't matter. I have clients that have, I've got CEOs of companies, but then I've got senior directors who have a better public-facing profile. Which would you choose, Varun, if you had a CEO
Yeah.
was really good at his job, okay, and then you have maybe a senior director who's not quite CEO, but he's got really great credentials. He goes out, speaks in public. Which one would you choose?
The latter, clearly.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, yeah, CEO title is a title, right? But again, any senior person, right, who has, like Michelle says, a good public facing personality, would be good enough. And yeah, it's ultimately, yeah, you have to include a little bit about their achievements to build them out, and put them as the expert, and then go on.
Yeah, definitely. Perfect. One more question before I finish up. And if you have any more questions, please put it in now, because there's only one question left here. Is it wise to share my product design or architecture and share details about the technology? And the question is for a startup founder to prove innovation, but you don't have to be a startup founder to prove that. You could also be the architect or the software engineer. But Varun, I think you can answer this question as well.
Yeah. So again, I mean, essentially in our application, what we included was most of the public-facing content that was available, right, or customer-facing content, not internal architectures and product design details, right? But I mean, you have to remember that the people who will assess, they won't be the most technical minded necessarily. They'll probably have a very generic skill set who are evaluating people across a very broad spectrum, right? So they don't need to know the details of the innovation. It's about what was the problem and how it was solved, what was the impact really, and some evidence to support that is what is needed.
Yeah. You can show bits of your design, but again, I know they say it's confidential, but I wouldn't want you to disclose too many things because you don't know who's looking at this, even though they do say it's confidential. Just show enough to show your innovation, but not everything. Okay, and I know that's hard, so that's why I'm here to help navigate that little bit, because I used to be a lawyer. Confidentiality to me is a huge thing, so we can kind of discuss that and really think about what we did some things with you, Varun. We submitted some innovation documents, but I said, show me what you have, but let's just not show everything. And
exactly.
you had some and also your patents were great because that was publicly available, so we could show that. So there are things that we can show, but things that we shouldn't show as well. Okay, perfect. Yes, I will contact you and we can have a chat around that. Sorry, I'm talking to someone there. Excellent. Okay, so I think this wraps up our final conclusion. And okay, someone's asked quickly one more question. They wear multiple hats as a startup founder. What documents can you show to show impact? That's a loaded question. So think about what context it is, explain that context, and then show the impact of what you actually did. That's all I can say really is also show metrics if you can. Impact is about metrics. Okay, and this is one thing I always say is look at the task at hand that you had to do. What did it look like before you did it? And what did it look like after you did it? That's impact. That's your impact. So hopefully that will help you. Also, another thing is just because you've done something, you can talk about what you did. My next two questions I will ask always to everyone is, so what? So what that you did that? And then what happened, the impact. So what and then what are the two questions I will always ask everyone. And also you should ask yourself, I did this thing, so what? What did that mean? And then what happened? Okay, and I encourage you to ask that question now, from now on, in anything that you do. Then that will get you in the mind frame of showing your impact to whatever it is that you did. Okay, so that's my last top tip. And I do have to finish up now because we are running out of time, and everyone wants to start their Sunday. Please do email me for further questions. But for one last thing, if everyone can have access to emojis on their screen, I want everyone to maybe congratulate Varun and Signa for achieving this amazing milestone in their personal life and in their career. And really just want everyone to share this inspiring story and to be inspired, because this is what it's all about. You're now role models for applicants, for people in your own countries. You're a role model for me. You're great teamwork. You know, you really did inspire me every time we spoke and further on. And I would love to continue to keep in touch and hear about, you know, when you get your ILR, when you've done your test, when you get your citizenship. It's just a fantastic milestone. So congratulations. Thank you.
And thank you, Michelle, for all your help as well.
Thank you. And I'll see you soon. Bye, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
Sunday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.